Hello everyone, welcome back with Daily Devotions with Pastor Peter. It's good to have you back here. Today we are in Genesis chapter 8. We're in the middle of the story of Noah and the ark and his family, who's also on the ark as well too, with the animals of course. So let's read this chapter and see what it says, and let's get something out of it. And this is what it says. Genesis chapter 8. When God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock with him on the boat, he sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the floodwaters began to recede. The underground water stopped flowing, and the torrential rains from the sky were stopped. So the floodwaters gradually receded from the earth. After 150 days, exactly 5 months from the time the flood began, the boat came to a rest on the mountains of Ararat. 2.5 months later, as the waters continued to go down, other mountain peaks became visible. After another 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the boat and released a raven. The bird flew back and forth until the flood waters on the earth had dried up. He also released a dove to see if the water had receded and it could find dry ground. But the dove could not find any place to land because the water still covered the ground. So it returned to the boat, and Noah held out his hand and drew the dove back inside. After waiting another 7 days, Noah released the dove again. This time, the dove returned to him in the evening with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. Then Noah knew that the floodwaters were almost gone. He waited another 7 days, and then released the dove again. This time it did not come back. Noah was now 601 years old. On the first day of the new year, 10.5 months after the flood began, the floodwaters had almost dried up from the earth. Noah lifted back the covering of the boat and saw that the surface of the ground was drying. 2 more months went by, and at last the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah, "Leave the boat, all of you, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Release all the animals, the birds, the livestock, and the small animals that scurry along the ground so they can be fruitful and multiply throughout the earth." So Noah and his wife and his sons and their wives left the boat, and all of the large and small animals and birds came out of the boat, pair by pair. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and there he sacrificed as burnt offerings the animals and birds that had been approved for that purpose. And the Lord was pleased with the aroma of the sacrifice, and said to himself, "I will never again curse the ground because of the human race. Even though everything they think or imagine is bent towards evil from childhood, I will never destroy all living things. As long as the earth remains, there will be planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night." This is chapter 8, which shows us that Noah was on the boat. He was on the boat for about 1 year. That is a very long time to be on a cruise. Imagine being quarantined because there was a huge plague going on, which is torrential rains that were happening. It stopped raining for a very long time, but they had to wait. They had to work. They had to take care of the animals. And the reality I want to share here is following God is not easy. You know, the whole story of doing what is right, doing what God calls us to do, is a task that becomes very difficult in our lives because, you know, it's contrary to what most people do. As we see already, the world is bent towards evil from childhood. And to be righteous means to bend that back. And that's hard to do. To break habits is something hard to do. And I think that comes with saying that when you're younger, you could develop habits and you gain habits and you have good habits. They will last you for a lifetime and protect you. But to reverse something, man, that's hard. Can't imagine being Noah and having to be in this situation. And now he's in a new place. They have to survive all over again in this new environment where everything is green, everything's luscious, I'm sure, but it's totally new. They're the only people on the earth. The only people on the earth. See, following God is not easy. It requires work. It requires sacrifice. It requires being ostracized or pushed to the side because you're a weirdo, to the world at least. Your family is outcast. You're on a boat on a cruise that isn't fun. You're working with animals. Even if you don't like animals, you're working with animals. And preparing food for your family to eat. I mean, just the planning and mental exhaustion that goes with this, and the emotional toll that it takes on a family like this. It's difficult. And here's the thing, I think following God requires us to put ourselves in a place where psychologically they would consider it dysfunctional in order for us to see God. And sometimes when we see ourselves in our dysfunctional state, and I think dysfunctional being a new start right here, it's our salvation in a sense, because God is the one who sustains us. So it's not easy following God. It will never be easy following God. It will be a challenge, breaking of our old habits, breaking of our old ways. Later on we'll see that Noah does go back to his old habits, even though he's already been redeemed. And so, my friends, if you're listening to this right now and you find it struggling or a struggle to follow Christ, know that you're not alone. This has been around since the beginning of time. When God calls the greats, he called them. And they fail at times too. And it's tough as heck. But it's doable. And we have to take it day by day. So my encouragement for you, as you look through the story of Noah, don't just think of it as, an animal cruise with with Noah and his family, and they're having a great fun time. Everyone's smiling on a boat that's about to sink. No, that's not the story. The story was everybody in the world and everything in the world died. They were saved for a purpose, but it also means that they had to work throughout that time. I wonder if Noah and his family had any doubts when they were on the ark. I mean, think naturally as human, we struggle. We don't see the struggle, but we could read between the lines, understand that the struggle was real. That had to be. But yet they still followed God. His children followed him as he followed God. This is a message for us who are children and our families too. We need to follow God as our parents follow God. And if our parents don't follow God, then we need to follow God anyway. But we need to follow God no matter what it takes, no matter how difficult it is. If we follow him, we will be blessed. And that blessing comes at the end, when we are at the end of ourselves, when there's nothing left to have. God grants us salvation. So my friends, hang in there. We are going through tough times, and it will be more difficult as time goes by, but stick with it. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.